singers. Let's talk about our breath. In last week's video, I explained that if you're consistently running out of air, you may be focusing too much on sucking in greater and greater quantities of air and ending up in a situation where you can't actually use that breath effectively. I encouraged you instead to focus more on supporting your air as you sing, so you really engage the muscles of the low belly on the outward movement of the breath, and then you're able to trigger a released and instantaneous inhalation. This is the engaged out, released in breath cycle. I'll link last week's video below, and I want to really encourage you to work on it because it's the best foundation you can lay for your singing. But what if you're working on it and practicing diligently and something is not quite right? Maybe you feel like you can get a sensation of drop, but there's not that much air coming in. Or you may be having a hard time even feeling that release or drop in the first place. So let's troubleshoot it. The first thing I want you to focus on is your posture. Posture can absolutely limit how quickly and how easily you're able to take in breath. Because if we are creating a situation in which the muscles of the abdomen are stretched or unable to move, you may not be able to get any kind of release because the muscles are sort of locked. This happens very frequently when you stand in a sway-backed position. So you can see here my tush is sticking out and I'm standing in a position that feels sort of upright and lifted, but the truth is the muscles of my belly are so stretched from my rib cage down to my pelvic bone that they're not able to have any range of motion. They can't release for inhalation and they can't even really engage very much for exhalation. So if I'm in this sway-backed position, here, I'll move back and you can see more of my body. So you can see here, I've got a lot of collapse here in the middle of my back. My rear end is sticking out and my abdominal muscles are really, really stretched from end to end. When I try to blow out in this position, I'm feeling a little bit of engagement, but I can't do very much. And then when I try to release to let the breath in, I get a little bit, but it's not the same full sensation. I feel like I'm getting sort of a 30% breath. So if this sounds familiar to you, I'd like for you to play around with the alignment of your pelvis. Imagine that your pelvis is like a shallow dish of water, and take a second to play around with tipping it backward and forward, and find a position that feels like you're sort of holding the dish steady and not pouring water out the front or out the back. If the pelvis is aligned in a really neutral way and not kind of overly tipped backward or dumping out forward, if it's really relaxed, then what you can find is that you're able to get a more vertical drop and the muscles of the abdomen will have their full range of motion. That's the goal. Now, the other postural problem you might be having is collapsing from the top as you breathe. So as you blow out, you may be experiencing something like check this out from the side. Can you see me curling over like a little shrimp as it cooks? What's happening here is that I'm allowing the work of the belly to actually migrate up into the upper abdominals, my sit-up muscles, instead of those low abdominals, which are the ones that are actually going to lift the viscera and support that diaphragmatic movement. So what I can do to help transfer that work back down into the lower abdominals where I want it is, first of all, to keep my shoulders open as I sing. Just keeping my shoulders moving out toward the outside walls, not jammed backward, but just open as I sing will really encourage that upward lift in the low belly instead of that crunching motion in the upper belly. Try that with me. We're gonna blow out and keep the shoulders broadening as we go. And now you can let the breath in and it will drop down. Feels great. If it's a helpful idea, I want you to think about one of those popsicles that you push up from underneath instead of like a bag of chips that you roll over the top, right? We want that feeling of lifting upward instead of curling over from the top. So posture is probably going to unlock some breath for many of you, but there may be something else going on. One of those things would be limiting the air as it comes in. If you really use your breath all the way to the end of the phrase, but then kind of limit it either at the level of the lips or in the throat, you'll be able to get a breath in, but you will not get that satisfying sensation of release in the belly. And you will also certainly not be able to get a very quick breath. So be sure that the lips, the throat, and the belly muscles are all relaxing all at once rather than gradually. Finally, this is a wonderful tip for you to just incorporate into your singing today. Use your final consonants. Now, what does this have to do with breath? Well, very often we start thinking about our breath and get very good about engaging the support at the start of the phrase. But it is hard to keep doing it, keep engaging all the way through to the end, with the result that by the end of the phrase, maybe these muscles have given up and are already relaxed. Well, you can't relax a muscle that is already relaxed, and if it's already relaxed, you're not going to get that satisfying drop or release as you inhale. So you'll sort of be stuck in this limbo zone. What we want to do instead is make sure that the breath is really active in these muscles all the way to the end of a phrase. Even if there's a decrescendo, even if you hold a note for a long time, I want you to keep these muscles active. And a great way to start doing that in practice is by really engaging final consonants. Now, of course, not every word has a final consonant, but you can do this in English, in German. Anytime you have a final consonant, really engage it, and I want you to feel the little kick of extra support that you'll get at the end of that phrase. Let's try this on the word bed. If you really say that D with a lot of engagement, you're going to feel a little kick in the belly here. Try it with me. Bed, bed. Can you see that little jump here? I'm really creating a final burst of engagement in those muscles. And what that's going to help me to do is then afterward, if that's the final word of the phrase, I am then in a fully engaged position from which I can relax instantaneously and without effort. So keep your posture lifted, keep your pelvis aligned, release the breath in all at once fully, and use your final consonants to help engage the breath all the way to the end of the phrase. I hope that this helps resolve some of your breath issues. If you have further issues, just let me know in the comments, and I would love for you to give a like or a subscribe. It would help me out. I'll see you next week. Thanks for practicing.